Hey, Kevin, how you doing, man?
Oh man, it's a great day.
It is. Isn't it a beautiful day?
It was nice. It's been amazing. This July has been so weird. The temperature has been so hot during the day, but like we're at the Rebels games and stuff,
Yeah.
and it just cools down. And we've had some awesome nights. So,
Yeah.
but I got up today. I was energetic. Got a little caffeine in me. So
Yeah. Like always, you always have good energy. It's a pleasure to meet with you today. I was just thinking through kind of Kevin Pouch and our journey together with me. There's some champions in the community and in my life that I've seen up and around. And I'll name people like Ron Harder. I knew Ron in 2001. He didn't know me to 2010, right?
right.
But just looking up to these people, the Ray Pinners of the world, um, the Val Gleasons, all these people and leaders in our community that have served over the years and have built things and have created things and have cast visions and sometimes taken a lot of heat for stuff for things that they've done and did.
Right.
But then at the
Right.
end of the day, what's happening because of visionaries and builders and people who have grit.
Mhm.
You are an amazing story for me. At 2007, I started serving on my first board in Newton. And then that's when the name Kevin Pouch became familiar. And I went to some city commission meetings later on and was able to see you in real form, not just hear about the guy who people talk about behind the scenes that does things in the community. You're there in a fitted suit, sharp, and just I'm thinking, wow, one day, and now I get to call you a friend. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's so
Yeah. That's
cool
awesome.
to mature into a community and to have people that you look up to eventually become your friends, and that's
Uh-huh.
pretty cool for me. And so,
Well,
thank you
that's
for being an
that's cool for
example.
me. That's cool
Yeah,
for me to hear that.
that's
I
cool.
mean, wow, because I mean, I remember at a very young age thinking, I don't know what it's going to be, how it's going to be, but I want to have a positive impact on people, on our world, and so that's awesome, And some of the names you mentioned right there have been huge blessings. So they may not even know it, but the
Mhm.
blessings that have been for me,
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
So
Well, they've also influenced me, and some of them have pulled me out of dark places in part of my journey in entrepreneurship, which you know all about that. I'm just here with the resume that I could read. So there's a thing on your website, and we're going to post it on the link below. But I do want to just highlight a few things. Is you're an entrepreneur, you're a great salesperson, you're a community advocate. You have a track record of consistency and of leadership. And you've been all across the U.S. I remember one time we run into each other in Atlanta, and we were at the airport in Atlanta. You know that airport is pretty wild,
it's
and
crazy.
and there's times we see Newtonians there, depending on because the flights and the places where we move around, and
Right.
but it's very rare that we see one or the other. And I knew who you were, of course, and I know we had
Uh-huh.
met several times at this point, but
Yeah.
you were like, "Hey, Andy, how you doing?" And I'm thinking, he knows my name.
Uh,
But here we are now, all these years later, and you've done so much, and it's so cool to talk to people that operate, that have actually cast a vision, that have not only taken it from conception but to realization. You're the guy that sees a property, sees the value, takes action on it, and actually can go into it and fix it up to make it what it needs to be. So you don't just do the front end stuff. You're not just the investor. You're actually the doer.
yeah.
And those are rare breeds and rare birds. And still to this day, I could see you out at different businesses and things that you own and that you're a part of. And I'll see you out there with your shorts on and a t-shirt wrenching,
Yeah.
and it's so different for somebody that's done all the things you've done in your life, because most people don't do that part at some point, but you continue to stay in the grit. And I really like that about you. And I hope that
Thank
I carry that same thing on, because most of the champions that I know, that's just how they are.
Yeah.
So I don't know
Well,
what
thank you.
causes that or what, but I want to get there today
Yeah.
to figure out what the hell sets you apart from all of the other people that are great people and do amazing things, but some people just stand out. And what is it? So the Rebels baseball, you are very well known in that world and for that organization. It brings so much to this community. And people know you for a lot of things. It's being a city commissioner, again, being an entrepreneur, being an investor, being an operator. But at the end of the day, the Rebels, Kevin Pouch and the Rebels. That's like married. It's tied together, right?
I can't deny that I've been involved with the Rebels. That's for sure.
So let's start up with the Mad Minute because I want to just warm up this conversation, get you warmed up. So if I was to ask you some things about yourself, let's start with what is your favorite color and why?
Oh, that's funny. I'm kind of wearing it.
Okay. Blue.
I don't know. Blue has just always been a color that I like, and then it's funny because when we have the Shamrock Car Wash, that's all green theme, and it's like, I don't wear green a lot, So, but it's just one of those colors that just always just kind of fit me. I don't know why, I
Yeah.
mean, I just like it, and my wife's, always my wardrobe is like if you literally go into my closet, yeah, pretty much blue.
Blue and whites.
Yeah,
Blue and
blues
whites,
and
dress
whites,
shirts.
like stuff like
Yeah.
what I'm wearing, right?
Right on. What is your favorite sports hobby or hobby and why? And I think I know the answer to that, but I just want to put it out.
Well, it's so interesting that growing up, my dad was a high school coach, and coming into, I mean, some of the work ethic, I think some of the stuff that that we're talking about really goes back like when I was fairly young, But my dad was a high school coach, and I remember him setting me down and saying, "I'll never be accused of playing my own kid." And I thought, okay, well, what's that mean, And he was like, well, I mean, you're going to have to win every wind sprint. You're going to have to, if we're playing football, so in small schools, so 1A, little 1A high schools,
Yeah.
um, you know, he would say, I mean, you got to win if we're in basketball, you got to hit your free throws. You got to win the wind sprints. You got to, basically just prove yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made me a better athlete, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I learned a real important lesson, So interestingly enough, though, I played football, basketball, track, and baseball in the summer, but that was probably my least involved sport as an athlete. I much rather play sports than watch sports,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And the whole Rebels thing started out as the general manager at the time, wanted to. Well, he was needing host families,
Mm-hmm.
and this is clear back in 2006.
Mm.
And he says, and he's at a chamber breakfast, and making the talking about the Rebels. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. We could do it. We could host a kid, and that's how it started. Well, then the next year, I was talking to his name's Chris Payton. I said, man, you really need a board, like you need volunteers. You're doing everything, I mean, there was just like him and maybe the assistant coach, and they were doing everything anyway. So I made the comment. I said, man, you really need like a board of directors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, well, thank you for being my president.
And then boom.
And that's
2006.
And here we are. So, what is that? Almost, 20 years later,
Yeah.
And it's been fun, and I got really involved because I felt like that was an amenity that we could have in Newton. It's collegiate baseball. These are the best baseball that happens in Newton is this level, And so anyways,
that's cool.
But, really sports minded. And so my wife, though, on the other hand, Kim, she's like she's got this head full of useless knowledge, I always say. And she's like, she knows who the stats are. I mean, she would be an ESPN talking head easy, but I enjoy sports, but I just don't know all the details. So a lot of times people ask me like, well, who's gone on to play professional sports? Well, here, let me get out the list from the Rebels,
Right.
Let me get out the list because I can tell you, but I can't remember their names and
right.
stuff, because
Your
I'm
wife
just not
is like pow, 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 pow.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Who they're married to, how many kids they have,
Nice.
Anyways.
All right. So here's a interesting one, and I should put truck in here, but because I see what you drive, but it says, are you a muscle car or luxury sedan kind of guy, and why?
Well, you know what I drive,
I
because
do.
we just talked about that a few days ago. So I've always had a pickup, grew up, like I said, rural Kansas, and just always had a pickup. And I mean, as far back as I can remember, and of course, growing up in ag and in small towns, I drove pretty young, and so I always had a pickup.
Yep. If you and Leroy ever did not have a pickup, I would freak out.
Yeah, I mean, it would be weird, to me not to have one. But yeah, that the GMC AT4, whew,
Beautiful.
boy, really enjoy it. I mean, I'm learning things, because I just got it, here a little bit ago. So,
Yeah,
it's pretty fun.
that's
So,
actually
but
my favorite truck.
but interestingly enough, I've said for years, and I don't know where I got all this, just my mentors and people that I got around. I remember this mindset, like I would rather drive like a used Cadillac than a brand new VW Bug. I mean, it just something just in me, like when I was driving a used Cadillac that was 10 years old, I felt like I had made it. You know what I'm saying? It was more of a reward to me. I could care less what other people,
Yeah.
think as far as that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, I like, a luxury car, but I'm probably not going to go buy, a brand new whatever, straight off the showroom floor. I'm gonna,
So for me, it's
conservative.
I want to pitch into that piece a little bit. I had a mentor one time tell me, Andy, you want a plastic bag with $5,000 in it, than a $5,000 bag with $1 in it.
Right.
And that's kind of that mindset that I know you carry because I've watched you for years, and a lot of the people I look up to are that way.
Yeah.
And I totally have borrowed that from you guys over the years,
Well,
and it served me well.
yeah,
So
I remember, like realizing over time, like people like that I respect as well that are financially off the charts successful,
mhm,
and but you would never know it
mhm.
because it's not like that's not their reason, that's not their MO. It's like,
And a lot of times that's why they're able to get there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a whole story behind that too.
Yep. Yep. So, okay. All right. So what is your, now here, show some love to a local restaurant here. Let's try to do Harvey County if we can.
Yeah.
What's your go-to order at your favorite local restaurant?
So I got a few favorites,
Okay.
right?
Right on.
So like, you know, well, there's several Mexican restaurants, and kind of I am a kind of a creature of habit when it comes to eating, because food like that. So I pretty know. I'm not going to pick on the Mexican restaurants. I do like, the Italian restaurant down south. Let's see, Rose. I always think it's Rosie's, but Genova's, right?
Yes.
And
We get that one off.
but I mean, I think there's like one item on the menu. It's like chicken parmesan, and I always get the roasted or the steamed vegetables. That's the vegetables aren't even really on the menu, so,
Right.
but she'll make this for me.
Yeah, that's cool.
If you've never been to Size Hoof and Horn over in Sedgwick, I mean that's Harvey County. I mean, I don't think there's anything on the menu but chicken fried steak.
Right.
And my wife's like, can you order something different? No,
I know what I like.
I like it. It's
Yeah.
good. Anyways,
So you do the chicken fried steak, not chicken fried chicken.
that's correct.
Right on.
Yeah. And they used to pound it out like this thing was like the plate's this big and the steak's this big. I mean,
Yeah.
I can eat like a fourth of it and then, hey, I have, chicken fried steak for breakfast for the next 3 days or something.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Well, last question before we get into Kevin.
Okay.
And again, I'm looking forward to sharing this with that link, but Harvey County has a lot of different spaces, I call them, created for different reasons. My personal one would be the Bethel Trails out by Sand Creek. When I went to school there, I used to go and take a blanket and a book. And me being dyslexic, it took me about double the time to get through a book than somebody else. But I found some tranquility for some reason out there. And I would find a space literally in the trees and throw a blanket over overgrown grass and get in there and make a little space and sit for hours.
Yeah.
And it was just quiet and breezy and just the atmosphere. I just loved it. Coming from the city, it was an interesting space for me to find that I just really, it took me over. So I always will have an affinity to that area back over there, those trails. What would be a space like that in Harvey County that you like?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question because, like when I'm downtime, usually I'm at home and just, chilling and not really have anything on my plate. That's kind of few and far between, so I don't really have a lot of time. I take a time and I'm listening to others that have been successful in their life, health wise and everything. We need the downtime. We need all that kind of stuff, but, probably for me is, we have a property at Table Rock Lake.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It sounds crazy, but when, we're driving there and the weight of the world's just,
You can feel it melting.
yeah, and you get down there and it's just get on the lake and I, find a cove and float around and drink a
Okay.
beer and just not even think about anything. That's kind of where we got that a few years ago, and just it's kind of our place to go and just get away.
And so you've conditioned yourself at this point with all the things you have going on that you can let it go for that time you're out there.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's
I have to shut my phone off though.
Okay.
Because like with our car wash business, I take all of our customer calls.
Yep.
Which people think it's just crazy, but I know that if I'm going to talk to them, I'm going to do the best I can to customer service. I tell people all the time, we claim to be the best car wash in the area, and when we're not, we provide the best customer service.
And you're there.
And but I feel like I'm committed to that, right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine somebody calling in, and getting some, third party that doesn't care.
Yeah. 100%. They read off the script to the number that.
But that's hard. That's hard, right? If you're doing that, and the nice thing is we were in the rental business for a long, long time. You get calls at 2 a.m. Car wash. If phone call comes in at 2 a.m, I don't need to answer it. My phone's silenced from like 10 p.m. till 8 a.m.
Yeah.
So if somebody calls and they're not starred in my brother,
Right.
I'm not probably taking that call. But anyways.
Boundaries, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, man. Here's the main piece, the meat and potatoes of this thing. And I know a little bit, but I want the audience to know some of this stuff because we've talked. And I know when they go, if the people want more detail, they can go to the link that we'll put in the podcast that leads to your website that has all this stuff. But I want to start with, where are you from, Kevin? Let's unfold who Kevin is and where you come from.
My wife will hate that I say this, but I always tell people, they'll say, "Where are you from?" Well, originally, my mother. She's like, Kim's gonna. Oh my gosh! Like, I can't believe you said that. But so interestingly enough, and I don't know for sure why, but my mom and dad both grew up in very small towns, and so when my dad decided to, he got, his major was education, and he kind of got then into secondary education. I was in grade school, and so we started, but he wanted to be a coach, and he found a job in a 1A size school. So my hometown is Linden, Kansas. I consider that my hometown. Was where I initially grew up, and my grandparents, one set of grandparents. But then we started moving. So and my dad, people would ask me like, "Are you Rudy Pouch's son, or are you related to Rudy Pouch?" And I would always ask, "Well, I don't know. Do you like him?" Because he was pretty much my way or the highway.
Right.
Well, and many times it was the highway, right? So we moved around small 1A size schools, and I went to 3 grade schools, 2 junior highs, and 3 high schools, all 1A size schools. Anyways, so my brother hated it. On the other hand, I enjoyed. Even though I didn't want to move, right? Every other year or whatever.
Right.
I enjoyed meeting new people, and that really has been my life. Is I am a people person. Love to be around people. Love to learn about people, and find out where they're from, who they're related to, and those kind of things. So, and then it gave me an opportunity, especially like in junior high school and on, to to kind of reinvent myself if I needed to, so to speak, hey, but sports was ever so present, but in a small school. And this is, I think, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like when you're in a small school, hey, if there's a school play, you're in it.
You're in it.
If we have student government, you're in it. So I mean, probably the earliest was being elected by your classmates to be the class president.
Right.
And because I went to 3 different high schools, that happened more than once, right? At 3 different locations, and then but the sports being so important, and setting records at schools and stuff. Man, that was so cool to
Yeah.
have the opportunity to, either in track or, most of the records I guess that I was involved in or set were in track.
So this is a hard question, I think, given what you've just unfolded here.
Yeah, yeah,
But you're my buddy in high school.
right.
Who was Kevin? What you were an athlete, but
Right.
who was Kevin? Like,
So I was really in high school. So kind of ratchet back real quick.
yeah.
So when I was held back in the first grade.
Mhm.
So, and I couldn't read really very well till I was about in the fifth grade.
Okay.
And in fact, you speak of like dyslexia. I was never actually diagnosed with anything back then,
Mhm.
but I'm sure that I just couldn't read, or maybe I just didn't like. I'd rather go catch frogs and and stuff, but I just reading was a difficulty. So go forward, I was an average student in high school. Probably what motivated me the most is I wanted to make sure that I had good enough grades that I could be on the field, football, basketball, or track,
Me too.
in school. So that kind of motivated me. But what I realized then later, like when I went to college, and going to college was just kind of an expectation. I mean, my parents never said, "Hey, you're going to college." It was just kind of that's the next step. As I went to college, so I would say I was like a B student, B student in high school. In college, I was 3.75 GPA, and then I went on to nursing school and 4.0, in nursing school. So the older I got, the better student I became in reading, and now, so probably since I was 25 years old, I've been on what's called the Book of the Month program, and I have read a book. I probably skim through a lot of them. Some of them I really get my attention. But yeah, so anyways, I don't know if that answers your question, but in high school though, the girls thought I was conceited, and I just always felt like I'm just confident. I mean,
Yeah.
but you know how that is. And I was above average athlete, so at least that's where I got my confidence.
Yeah.
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 So
I can relate to some of that a little bit.
yeah.
You said something very interesting. I'm going to rewind this. Since you were 25,
Yeah.
you were part of a book club
Yeah.
at
Right.
25.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's when because that's when I really started turning my gas up, because guys are different
Right.
in a lot of ways. And you have a lot of character traits that do lean to some of our gifts, I will call it, from dyslexia,
Yeah.
which is we have to work double hard for the average score. But that working double hard in other places works out really well when you don't even realize that's what you have to do to make it.
Right.
So there's a lot of great things that are built into that over time. But at 25, you join a Book of the Month club. Are these certain types of books? Are they a
Right.
variety of books? Or is it more, do you get to pick the genre that comes to you? How does that work?
So no, that's a really good question. So I'm not a novel reader, right? So anything that is similar to a novel. Now I've read some books that like Ogmandino books. Ogmandino wrote, they're all positive mental attitude books. Some people think, that's just trash, positive mental attitude, self-help, other people, there's just all different kinds of
Mhm.
terms. But, I've read some, I do enjoy reading like the autobiographies or stories about, success, people that have been successful. But most of them are the self-help, positive mental attitude books. And some of it seems like just rhetorical or not rhetorical. What's the word?
Redundant.
I mean, they're a lot of the same message, but I just learned that, it's kind of that like whatever you're putting in your head, that's coming out in your body, in your life. And so I live by a lot of quips and quotes, that kind of demonstrate. So to your point, the dyslexia and working twice as hard, I just, I kind of have my own personal philosophy of I'd rather wear out than rust out. I don't know where that really came from, but it's just like, hey, at the end of my life, people say, well, you're burning the candle at both ends. And I'm like, well, when I die, I won't have a candle, right? So, right? I just want to be whatever it is, the best I can be, and just give back, and and so a lot of the stuff that motivates me is my kids, and setting up, I mean, I hear people all the time say, well, my kids know that when I die, it's all going to be used up. We're spending it. They got to get their own. And on my idea is like, I don't want to give my kids a handout. I want to give them a hand up.
Hmm.
Again, quote, quip,
Hmm.
but the reality is like that motivated me to make sure that, my finances were in order,
Hmm.
because ultimately, wouldn't it be nice to set your family up,
100%.
change their destiny from that regard. And it's like, well, all my kids probably think that I'm mean, because, pretty much all of our everything that we've built, our trust is really focused to our grandkids, so, and the Bible says leave an inheritance to your children's children, so I picked that up again, very, very young. And that's kind of been what drove me.
I love
So,
it.
yeah.
I love
Anyway,
it. Well, thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
You come from, I've learned about through the years about your mom and your dad, and how, what a foundation they set for you. Can you speak on that a little bit on your family unit there?
Yeah, I mean, traditional family, mom, dad, three kids.
Yeah.
My mom was a registered nurse.
Yeah.
So educated. First in her family, to go to school. And my dad grew up in a small Cherokee, Kansas, southeast Kansas, coal miner country. So he came up. His dad was a coal miner.
Mhm.
My grandfather was a coal miner,
Wow.
as well as my great grandfather, who immigrated from Sylvania. They settled in southeast Kansas at coal mining. And so, interestingly enough, my dad was a Democrat, my mom was a Republican,
Mhm.
but we never had these conversations. There was never political, and
Strife.
times were different back then. And, I mean, we just didn't have those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
But my parents were both hardworking people,
Mhm.
and they raised us to be courteous, and, all the kinds of things that you expect, from parenting. I mean, if we were out of order, I remember my dad saying something about applying the Board of Education to the seat of knowledge. Y- it's like getting a spanking
Mhm.
back in that day was like, oh, got your attention.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they loved on us, they supported us. I mean, my parents were wonderful when it came to being encouraging and helping us. Like, we didn't have a lot of money, we had what we needed.
Mhm.
And I never felt like, oh, this stinks. I can't believe that. I'll give you an example, though, of kind of how my folks were. As my mom, I remember we got new clothes for school. That's when we would get new clothes. And so we were out shopping, and I told my mom, this was like when I was in sixth grade. I want, I want, I want to get Lee jeans, the brand Lee jeans. And she goes, well, we're at J.C. Penney's, and I'm buying you J.C. Penney plain pocket jeans, and they were like $10 or whatever. And I said, but I like Lee. And my mom said, well, hey, really, so let's do this. I'm going to buy the jeans, and you buy the label. you know, uh, you know, sixth grader. I'm like, what? What do you mean? She said, look, I mean, let's lay these jeans side by side. If you don't see the label, you don't know. They're both jeans. They both are good jeans. They'll fit right, and they'll, all this. But if you want the label that says Lee, then you're going to have to come up with the money, and you add in your money with my money, and you can get the Lee jeans. So it was kind of that mindset. If it's to be, it's up to me,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That started at that time, because literally that was like a Saturday, and Monday I had a newspaper route,
I get it.
right?
I
I mean, so that turned into really my first entrepreneurial experience. Was I didn't know anything about paper route, and I was able to build my paper route and go. And my buddies all knew that, hey, when I get paid from my paper route, we're going to have French fries down at the local cafe, and I would share what I got, But I learned at a young age, hey, if you want nice things and you want to have success in your life, go for it. It's up to you, you know?
Right.
But, you know, and my dad was, again, I kind of mentioned, you know, it's like, I'm not going to be accused of playing my kid. You know, my dad was pretty much separation of, you know, you're my child and you're my student, you know? So if the whole class was getting in trouble, I got in trouble too.
Yep.
You know, I remember one time walking down the hallway and my dad was, you know, down the hall a little bit. Hey, dad. He didn't respond. I said, Dad. And then, and he just kept walking. I said, Mr. Pouch. I turned around.
He was
What?
coaching you.
Yeah. You know, like yeah, he was coaching me. So,
Mhm.
but, you know, when we were young, you know, we would go to church and, you know, and I think through my dad, you know, and my family, like, you know, I was involved in Fellowship of Christian Athletes,
Mhm.
and my dad was our Fellowship of Christian Athletes, what he would kind of sponsor, you know, in our school.
Mhm.
And I became a Christian because, you know, really just because of that exposure, but at a FCA get together, you know, in Western Kansas. I was 16 years old,
That's
you know,
awesome.
but so they laid that foundation and had high expectations, but they also had lots of grace,
Man, that's powerful.
you know.
So there's a lot there as you continue to mature this. And again, I love it. I get to hear the story in different ways, but kind of tying it together like this is important. And then so you come from the structured family, hardworking people, hardworking roots. I mean, coal miners. Are you kidding? I mean, talk about gritty,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then here you are, 3 generations later, right? And what did it look like going into college when you kind of separated from the house? When you were growing up, it was kind of like good luck. Like you got to go to college to be successful. It's kind of the message at that point.
Yeah.
And we had great systems in America at that point for the college system.
Right.
So you had to qualify. It was competitive.
Yeah.
It was an honor to go. And so you get to go to college. What did that look like to transition away from your family?
Well, so, you know, you talk about gritty. So growing up in ag, you know, ag country, rural Kansas, I mean, that's pretty much all I knew is working on the farm, bucking bales. Of course, I thought like, hey, if I'm throwing bales, that's making me stronger. You know, so in my head, I'm like, this is going to be great. Working out, you know, walking down the lane, feeding the hogs, and taking 5-gallon buckets of corn and doing different exercises and stuff while you're walking. But then going to college, like I said, I was very involved, you know, in high school. Like I said, if something was going on, they needed all the bodies, you know. I mean, I always brag. I was in the top 25 of my class, you know. Of course, there were, I think, maybe 25 in my class, you know.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
so, but you had to be involved, right? So
Yeah.
going to college, so crazy. Like, you know, where did this come from? So I walk on campus. I don't know anybody, right? I'm just a kid from real Kansas. I went to Emporia State University, and within the first month, I'm running for an office as a student representative for my freshman class, right? Which I got, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And got involved with what's called the Union Activities Council, and that's just a group of students that are bringing in concerts and doing fun things and all that stuff. So I'm involved right away, and I meet a guy that's with Phi Delta Theta fraternity. And I had no idea about fraternity. I had, you know, other than I'd watched Animal House, you know, and thought, well, that's, you know, party time, you know.
Right. Right.
But even then, like I was so focused on sports and stuff in high school. I mean, I could probably count the number of times I drank beer on one hand, you know. And back then, you know, it was 18, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
you know, you know, but so I go and all, you know, I'm kind of in my own head, just looking back, thinking, I mean, I don't even know what motivated me to do that, other than I just wanted to be involved, you know.
Mhm.
And Emporia State was big enough to be anonymous, you know, if you wanted to, but small enough that if you wanted to get involved, I mean, so it was perfect. So a friend asked me, now brother, fraternity brother asked me, hey, you want to have dinner with us? And oh, okay, sure, you know. And that started a whole, you know, well, let's see. I joined the fraternity in 1979, and I've been involved as high as our what they call province president, and I was the chaplain for our international fraternity, for the whole organization. So again, just wanting to give back and be involved, and it gets back to that, rather burn out than rust out. I mean, I just, if I can do it, I mean, I want to be involved. And so, but anyways, so going to college was, was important to me, but I didn't graduate from college. I ended up going on to nursing school. So I went 3 years of undergraduate at Emporia State. I went there on a full ride music scholarship. So again, just I was a trumpet player and did all the competition, and I was going to go to K-State, but then Emporia said, well, we'll just, we'll give you a scholarship to come here. And I said, okay, well, we don't have any money, so and I don't want to have a big school bill.
Right.
And big school bill back then is much different than it was today.
Right.
I mean, you could take full class, 12, 16 hours, and it costs you, few $100, so it's completely different than it is today.
Right.
But anyways, so I went there on a music scholarship, and then even though I was, again, above average musician, I didn't, and being kind of immature, I didn't really see how I could have a career in music, which is so silly now because you look back, But I wanted to play football while I was at Emporia State. And so I was like, well, I want to play football, which I did. And here I am in marching band. How's that going to work out? I mean, it's just all weird. But I ended up shifting my major after I had conversation with an orthopedic surgeon. Our speech class, in speech, you had to go interview a career. And after I talked to this guy, why haven't I been thinking about medicine? So I shifted gears and, joined the Caduceus Club, which is the pre-med, and switched to biology and chemistry, which, I mean, it seems so completely different than music,
Right.
Which is, but then I realized, oh, okay, I'm getting married. I want to speed these things up. I don't want to be in college the rest of my life. I can't imagine going to, be a medical doctor 4 more years after college. I mean, very immature. I mean, that time flies so fast, but I shifted gears because I was going to become a nurse anesthetist. Okay. CRNA, which is, not a medical doctor, but they give anesthetic in surgery. And I thought, okay, and I picked this all up really from having that, interview with this orthopedic surgeon.
Wow.
Anyways, long story short, now I'm going down this path of medicine, go into nursing, go to school in Stormont Vale School of Nursing in Topeka. And I finished that, immediately start working in critical care. And then within about 2 years, we moved to Liberal, Kansas, which is southwest Kansas, and worked in the hospital there. Always, getting promoted. I mean, hard worker, getting promoted to management positions. I ended up going into a private practice outside of the hospital, and I thought, wow, again, just realized a whole nother world. Like, in my head, everything medicine happened in the hospital. Like very little happens there. It's all, So critical care experience, I put together a cardiovascular testing, part of this practice, and just a lot of technical stuff, and then moved to Newton. Okay, because my wife at the time had an opportunity to join Bethel Clinic, and Bethel was being merged, and they were building the new Bethel Clinic, and this is 91, right?
Yep.
So, but I had never worked in Newton. Because the contacts I knew in Liberal, they were cardiologists and nephrologists and different people. So I ended up working in Wichita as a nurse.
Yeah.
Which then led to the Cancer Center of Kansas. I don't know if I'm on track here. We're just, kind of telling you my career path. And so I worked at a dialysis center, 12-hour shifts, 3 days a week. And I thought, well, this is boring. What do I do on the other 3 days? Oh, so I went and I started working for a company that's like a temporary company that will just place you at different jobs that need your expertise, and so I got exposed to Cancer Center of Kansas. And while I was at dialysis, then I was working all the rest of the days of the week, alternating every week. And they finally came to me at the cancer center and said, "Why don't it'd be a lot cheaper for us if you just worked for us?" And because they're paying a temporary service, for
Right.
all that.
Yep.
So I went to work for them in the early '90s, and then in '91 actually too, and went by the end of the decade. I was promoted to the bone marrow transplant coordinator, and I managed the whole bone marrow transplant outpatient portion of the transplant program, which is again high tech.
Yep.
But I had the pleasure of putting that whole program together. They didn't have that and they said, "Hey, we're going to add this outpatient, division, and we need you." So I spent the next 6 months traveling around the country, observing and learning from other programs, bringing the best back, to Wichita. And we did 86 transplants in the first 6 months when we opened the program.
So the meat and potatoes for me and what you're describing is, again, you've come into companies and organizations. You've continued to be put in leadership positions for some reason. I truly believe that what I know of you and what I saw from you and what was attractive as a young guy when I first met you was, and it's authentic with you. Some people kind of fake it till you make it stuff, right?
Yeah.
But there's a sense of confidence in you. And you've said it once before that the girls in high school thought you were arrogant, but you were just confident.
Yeah.
But that comes from probably your mom and your dad of drilling into you, because I feel like my mom probably overdid it. I've never understood what it feels like to not know who you are. And I've been who I've been. And there's sometimes I haven't liked myself and I've done bad stuff. And I've been a part of bad crowds for little periods of time in my life as I'm navigating the world. But I always knew who I was.
Yeah.
And that came from a sense of faith and upbringing and a foundation that I had with my faith for me, which I've just always had that. I've never, yeah, I went against it sometimes, but I always knew it was there and I never denounced it, right? My faith and my belief.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of confidence in you that it permeates. And when you walk into these groups in Emporia and you become the head of the student council and these other positions that you continue to navigate, what I'm hearing is you come into a new environment, you listen and learn, build relationships, and somehow those communities put you in a leadership position. Then you transfer to another area, you make your mark, you work hard. Now you're in a leadership position. Now you're in another position where you're literally putting together the system, and you've taken all these experiences and you continue to add on with experience, with guidance, with repetition, which is very important. And you're able to steward groups of people forward and create systems.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, I think, comes from that confidence. Somebody had confronted you in front of me about 2 months ago, give or take a few weeks. And it wasn't ugly, but it was direct. Most people can't handle that conversation. And it wasn't a show because it was 3 dudes outside and one of them questioned something about you.
That. Yeah.
And you cocked your shoulders back and respectfully stepped in and started asking real hard questions. And then you had a rebuttal because you walked him into a corner, respectfully though.
Right.
But there was no backup.
Right.
You're trying to create a narrative about me that's not there.
Yeah.
And you squashed it really quick. And you said, basically made the point that you're coming from this whole other preconceived notion and conversations you had 50 times, not ever talking to me about how I think.
Right.
And you reverse engineered it and grappled it down real fast. But it was a very respectable, creative answer that he hadn't heard before.
Right.
But you could see his facial expressions change and him go, wow, I never thought about like that before. So we still believe the same thing. You just got there a different way.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't mean that our core belief isn't the same, but your way of explaining it is actually more official and more, I would say, it's a higher level of processing that he hadn't been challenged with before.
Right.
But then he goes, but I can roll with you now, not only on the level that we actually do believe the same thing.
I knew who you're talking about. And at the time, I didn't know where he stood on Kevin Pouch, right?
Ah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And on, quite frankly, I didn't think he was a Kevin Pouch advocate, or even was considering me to support me, or to understand who I was.
Okay.
Since then, which is interesting, he has told me, I've got his cell phone, he's got mine,
Yeah,
we've had conversations, we've talked, we've done, and you're right. I mean, it's just a matter of being able to have a conversation with people. I know that we're not, I mean, you and I are not going to agree on every single little thing,
for sure.
but you hit on it. It's like, I would rather people understand how I think and make decisions versus, what's my agenda, and do I have an axe to grind, or or is there some big social issue that you're going to try to cubbyhole me, versus understanding why and how I think. Like, most of my thoughts are not unique. I didn't come up with most of what I think
Right.
myself.
Right.
It's been influences, from people.
Well, and for me, I think we agree on a lot, but we won't agree on everything. And I think it's kind of pansy-ish to not to say that we would sit here and talk for 5 hours on hard topics and think we see all of them the same. We both know we don't.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I respect your opinions and your thoughts, and I know where it comes from, and I can borrow from pieces of your feedback, even though I don't agree with the whole. How you get there makes sense to me,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And we both can do that, and we've done that in the past, and we'll continue to do that in the future.
Yeah.
And but I respect you as a human being. I respect you as an operator. I respect you as a doer, as a leader. Most of all, for me, as I can get behind a leader like yourself because of your ability and your life experiences, and me literally looking up to you from afar, but not really knowing the nitty gritty. But the more I've gotten to know you throughout the last 3 or 4 years, and really not just the name or the guy seeing passing in the airplanes in the airports or walking along at the chamber breakfasts, but the person that I'm getting to see who you really are, and your character, and the way you navigate hard conversations and people, and the way you're able to call things out for what they are, to get people to a 30,000 foot view. But you can also go in and put the nail in, and you've done it all. And so many people,
willing to put the nail in.
yes, and you'll do it first.
Yeah.
Right? You lead from the front.
Yeah.
And those are the type of leaders we need right now in this critical time, which is fair-minded, broad, not that you're not fake, you're not halfway there, you're not in the middle. You stand for what you stand for, and you're confident. But
Yeah.
I believe it's the air of confidence that it's not a bad thing. You've gotten gifts and you've got reps. So you're confident in that because and your wife supports you, and you guys, yeah, I can tell she's a pistol, right?
Oh, that's a nice way of saying. Well, and honestly, I am married to a gal that, I mean, is my biggest supporter, my biggest advocate.
That's awesome.
Like, behind you've heard this phrase, behind every successful guy is a strong woman.
Mhm.
Hopefully it's their own wife, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, I believe that she's not always, she's probably more cautious. She's not like me. She's kind of more of a homebody.
Mhm.
Kim does great with people. She's so comfortable with people. That's just not her thing. She'd rather be out in her flower garden, getting the weeds out and just, but yeah, so it's been so important to me to have her, picking up the pieces and making sure things are happening, because she told me a long time ago that you just go run your pace.
Mhm.
Don't expect me to be there.
Yeah.
I'm going to support you. I'm not going to be an anchor. There's been many times with different businesses and investments and stuff that she's more scared, or not scared, but more concerned, or
Mhm.
calculated.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
I do tend to be a little bit more on the
Risky.
I don't know if are you familiar with the DISC personality system?
I'm familiar with several of them.
The different ones,
Colors
right?
and
Yeah. There's all different ones.
Yeah.
And I tend to be an ID. So I is outgoing. It's like, if you put it like an animal would be an otter, like a lot of have fun, let's have fun. But because I'm a ID or DI, depending, well, D is more dogmatic, demanding, decisive, determined. Like, that is the personality that most people don't like. That's the arrogant part that people don't like, right? Like, you can step on people and don't care. But because I love people, I am a people person. That's where that other part of that combination comes in, and so it's just like I love to have fun my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but the whole point is I've learned some of these things again from just the exposure and the mentors that I've had. Again, going clear back, like when I was 25 years old and really didn't know anything about business, I just knew that as I listened to these people, I needed to have my own business, but I always had a career, right? So I knew that I was going to take care of my business, my life, and make sure I'm paying my bills and everything. I wasn't going to just jump off in the deep end and risk my family and my family's safety and security
Mhm.
because I have this dream to be an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
But I knew that, somebody told me again, very young, you make a living 8 to 5 and you make a lifestyle thereafter. And I was like, okay. So how I took that was you go work hard, you clock out, and then you go get busy,
Right.
and that's what I did. And I got around people that helped form me, in the way I think. And, you know, being on a book of the month for what's that 40 years, almost, yeah, 40 years.
A lot of good
I
information.
mean, it's like it's just garbage in, garbage out, good things in, good things out.
And that radiates, right? Like the personality that you have, and the reason you stood out to me was because of some of those practices and you weeding through things. And you see I've got tons of books, and I've been reading about that same time,
Yeah.
minimum of a book a month, and that goes to business or self-improvement or things like that, right? And I do groups too, men's groups, where there's books involved with those things, and it's about sharpening yourself up. And
Yeah.
a lot of times they're faith-based groups, almost always, not always, but and that helps me a ton. But over the years, I don't know what I do without that stuff, right?
Well, it's that all that kind of stuff is again I go back to my roots as a Christian, and a lot of it's just real biblical good stuff like like steel sharpens steel, one man sharpens another. So if you're getting around good people, I remember as a kid when my mom would say, "Birds of a feather flock together." When my mom would say that, what she was saying, and she would explain it to me, birds of a feather flock together. You're hanging out with the wrong bunch,
100%.
right? But as an adult, I learned that birds of a feather flock together. So if you want to be financially stable, hang out with people that are financially. If you want to be somebody, again, leaders are readers. When you start listening to like these top executives that run these giant corporations,
Book a week.
these guys are maybe more than a book a week, and guys, I say guys, gals, these leaders,
Yep.
right, that are implementing the stuff that I was told that would make a difference in my life. So, like if I'm talking to somebody, some kid, I'm like, hey, I've got a book you should read. It's Magic of Thinking Big. People are like, what? But that's a classic, right?
Yeah.
How to Win Friends and Influence Others.
Major one.
I mean, some of some of the major,
John
classic
Maxwell.
John Maxwell, and I mean, just so many, but to me, it's like you want to try to help people get a right mindset, and I think part of me is also there's a book, and I can't remember the title right now, but basically the author, she wrote about a fixed mindset versus a
Mindset.
a growth mindset, and I fit in the growth mindset. So I've had people say, "Hey, we like Newton, small town, no apologies." And, I love that concept. I mean, I think that's a very wholesome concept. But Newton's not a small town.
We're a small city.
We're a small city, but if we have this growth mindset, then we're not rigid, we're open-minded, we're looking at different options and opportunities. And we don't need to get into all this, but
I love it.
It's this idea of like when I was on the city commission, I was a part of the decision making, and that when we added the logistics part,
Right.
well, now called the Newton. what is it called now? It used to be Kansas Logistics Park, and they renamed it to,
Yeah.
anyways. So this industrial park, and when we made that decision, I mean, it was visionary. Let's build this thing. How do we improve our tax situation? How do we improve our life here in Newton? People are always complaining, oh, we don't have any good restaurants. Well, you got to have the infrastructure and the need for these companies to come and have a good restaurant or all the other amenities that we think about. Well, so we had this vision. I don't think that I would have been the person on that if I didn't have this growth mindset.
Correct.
Like okay, so here we are. So now granted, we made the decision. It was a big ask of the community, but here we are now, 15 years later, and what seemed to be like, oh, this is way too much, is now full. We've got the largest economic impact company coming to South Central Kansas in Newton,
Right.
which is impacting Harvey County,
Right.
which, I'm a firm believer when the tide rises, all the ships rise. So, Andy, if you're doing better, I'm going to do better.
That's
If
right.
Newton's doing better, Heston, Halstead, Sedgwick, Burton, all in the county's going to do better, right? So here we go. Big company, big vision on their part. Housing developments are already popping up,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Not just in Newton.
In a really rough time to be doing it, but the investment needs to be made, and they're making it.
Yeah, and they're making it.
Yeah.
And we see neighborhoods that were kind of stale and dormant coming alive. They're going to bring hundreds of jobs. The tax base is going up. Altogether
for all of us.
So I mean, getting into all this, but to me the idea of economic development drives so many things. So as a county, if we can have more economic development, we are actually a more populated county than most in Kansas. We are a higher population, but if we can attract people to Harvey County, that helps, right? Pay the taxes.
Yeah.
If we encourage growth, so right now we have Mennonite farmers for the most part throughout the county that's building chicken barns. They're raising chickens to these barns hold like 20,000 chickens, and they're making eggs and manure. And so these guys they're actually building a $1.5 million barn that's immediately on the tax rolls.
Right.
They're making income. They're making more raising chickens and producing eggs than they could on the 20 acres that they would have had a wheat farm or wheat or
Right.
soybeans or whatever. What a fantastic concept. It's all good. So anyways, get off track there, but
No, it's not. It's right up the alley with leadership, right? And visionaries and self-improvement. And I'm a freak about books. And the thing is to me, the mindset of only pulling from the people around you only is good for so long, because you get caught in a silo or a circle where you just want to hear feedback you're comfortable with, and nothing gets you outside of that thought process of what could be, right? I'm going to sound like one of our vice presidents that talks about a bunch of nonsense and says nothing. But I really want to make a point here that when I realized John Maxwell wrote a book that I borrowed about leadership, when I really got into the leadership genre, and I'm grateful my mentor, it's so important, and this man has done amazing things. One of my champions, my life champions, and I have a handful of them, and I'm grateful for that, because a lot of people, it's hard to find one or two.
Yeah.
And I've got literally a group of them.
Yeah.
That I've been able to do different things throughout my career, and I was able to put through different crucibles that they probably didn't enjoy putting me through, because they knew how hard it was going to be, hoping I would hold on, because they've had to go through it, but they couldn't do it for me.
Right.
They kind of qualified me to say, you've got the stuff, buddy, but can you do the stuff? Because the doing is the hard part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then you got to deal with personality conflicts and triangulations and leadership stuff that you have to oversee. And then you've got to be able to pluck bad apples out of certain groups and learn to identify them, but also still give them an opportunity for growth, because who are we?
Right.
right? Because we're all those people unless we make that choice to
That's
do the
right.
next thing.
Right.
And a lot of us won't, right? But you go through and you just got to identify, and you've got to be the person that does that.
Mhm.
And when you can borrow 30 years of experience in 4 hours, you might not get all of it because it's so much.
Yeah.
But once you realize the repetition from this genre to that genre, but the similarities, you start getting the code, or what I like to call the patterns.
Right.
And you go, there's patterns here that are very distinct. Then you get to start seeing patterns in others. Then you go through that level of growth. And I know you've been there, where you start wanting to change and fix everything around you, and everything needs to be a venture, right?
Yeah.
Everything needs to be a entrepreneurship, standalone, right? And
Yeah.
all you talk about for a couple few years is all the stuff you're learning. You're throwing up on everybody around you all the time because there's so many great
Yeah.
opportunities all around us every day, which is all true.
Right.
Then you have to learn the next stage of dialing that back and understanding
Yeah.
how do you provide opportunity. And one of the things I took was, people come to me want to start a business, have it happen monthly, literally,
Mhm.
because of the networks and the people.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
if I've started this, oh, so and so helped with this part or whatever.
I mean, we've had conversations,
100%.
you know,
Yeah.
about that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So what I like to do though is, I have a book that I give out. It's called The Dream Giver.
Oh, yeah.
It's the very first one I give people, and give the book. And this is my pattern. And these books are so important before this perfect reason. And it starts with the book.
Mhm.
Give a book. It's called The Dream Giver. It will blow your mind and open you up in so many ways. And then there's a Traveler's Gift. Is the second one I give. If they get through the first one,
Right.
almost nobody does. So you get The Dream Giver and give it to them. And so in 3 days, we'll talk about the first 3 chapters.
I do the same thing. I mean, I literally give people books, and it's almost a gauge, right? I'll give them a book and I say, hey, when you get done with chapter 1, call me.
How many calls do we get back?
Very few.
And it's so interesting that we've never discussed this part before, I don't think.
No.
Okay. Because I've said this about 10 different people, because this is secret sauce stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Because our time is our time,
Yeah.
and I've got to build stuff. I'm commissioned to do it.
I only have so much time. I can't babysit you. I mean, that's a hard way of saying it.
But it's true.
But the reality is, I mean, hey, I want you to succeed,
100%.
but you've got to want it more than I want it for you.
And a lot of times I did fill out all the paperwork and spending months trying to push people to take the next step, until you find this chasm that you realize you can't overcome for them, but then they make it your fault
Yeah.
for not overcoming the chasm that they're not choosing to do. Sometimes it's making the phone calls.
Right.
It's that granimal. It's that basic.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, dude, I hated that part.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But after 6 months, I don't even think about that part anymore.
Right.
Because
you're hitting on a topic that really, to me, was very apparent. So, I've been involved. I've had businesses, like I said, since I was 25. One of the businesses, and it really exposed me to all of the mentorship concept was, having a multi-level marketing, background or
Yes.
business.
Yes.
And I remember, folks that I'm mentoring and coming to me and saying, well, what do I do next? And I would say, okay, well, have you made a list of your top 100 prospects?
Qualified
Get qualified prospects. No. Okay. Well, when you get done with the putting that list together, let's get back together. And then maybe a week, a month, a year goes by, and they go, well, what should I do? I would say, well, let's see. The last time we talked, we talked about getting a list together. Do you have that list? Well, no. Okay. Well, when you get that list put together, let's get back together. And again, so I'm not doing it for them, but it's just, to me, it's that. Well, you've probably read the book Entrepreneur Myth.
I don't remember.
I think, let's see. But anyway, I think that's the name of it. And basically in the book, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but some people are,
in theory.
yeah, in theory, but also everybody thinks that when you own a business, you're just eating bonbons, and and I had this conversation a few days ago. I was at the car wash in Wichita, and this guy asked me, well, what's it like being an owner? I said, well, it's 11:30 at night, and I'm at the car wash. What do you think? Right? I said, because everybody thinks it's all glamorous, but at the end of the day, hey, my guy that does the work most of the time is not, he's, not available today. So, I mean,
got to fill the
it's
spot.
11:30.
You're the
at night.
911 phone call when the big issues happen.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
don't look behind our shoulders.
Right.
It falls in our
You
lap.
just go do it, right?
100%.
So anyways,
No, well, this is good. But, when you realize, when you give people a book and most people won't read it, if you can't overcome that objection on your own time and find 4 hours, and you're talking 3 chapters, which is probably 15, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
30 minutes,
yeah,
and you're going to start a company.
yeah.
Like,
And I'm a slow
and
reader
that's
too. So
yeah, me too. And that's the conversation I have with people right there. I've learned it was 100 mess ups for me to find out that this is the best way to weed through it, to have other people take responsibility earlier in the process. And it's still going to be my fault for some reason, but I can unleash and save all that time because there are those that will come back with the book.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And I had no idea when my mentor gave me a book and I was back 2 days later and I
It
was
was a
like,
test.
what's
and
next?
It was a test, and you
And
passed.
he's like,
step
this
one
one's
test.
different. He read the whole book.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was reading the book, I couldn't put it down.
Oh yeah.
And it was The Dream Giver.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just so unlocking and enlightening and challenging. And I was like, oh my God, this guy already knows me.
Yeah.
He knows me. And I've only met him for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then he gave me another book, which was The Traveler's Gift.
Yeah.
It's another piece of that journey. It's unlocking what you're going to have to do to actually be successful in the journey that you're embarking on that you haven't even started yet.
You have no
There's a
idea.
lot of stuff that you're going to have to do and things you're going to have to deal with. And it's a foundational build, which you're borrowing knowledge and understanding. The basis is in a book somewhere. There's a lot of champions that have come before us. We should probably watch them and listen and learn. And that's my whole point right
Wisdom.
here is you've been there. You've done things. You've built things. You're
Yeah.
seasoned. You've organized and masterfully led teams through hard things, and you've made decisions and taken eggs thrown at you that have profited many years later when nobody saw it coming. And then you're the I knew it was you guy, but you have to remember
so
that
lucky.
same person
You're
was
so lucky.
beating you up, and
Yeah.
all those things you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And then you have to find that grace to say, we just let it go.
It's okay.
Move forward. But Kevin, as you're looking to run for the county commission, and that's the real reason we're here, just be
Sure,
blunt
yeah.
about it. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's right.
I wanted people to get to know who you are, know your background, but also that you're a leader of leaders. You've been doing it for a long time, since college, since before that, as an athlete in high school and in middle school. You're a hard worker. You're a good man. You've got a great reputation. You're consistent. People that know you're a get it done guy. And you know how to have hard conversations in a respectful way. And some people might not like your style because you're direct, but you don't waste time. And you don't do it to be ugly. You do it to get things done.
Yeah.
And I know that part of you, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I think, a rarity, unfortunately, these days. And I wish we can get back to that. But we need people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
That can think for themselves,
Right.
that don't get caught in a tunnel vision, because it's easy for us to do today. I mean, we literally have algorithms online pushing us to do exactly that. And most of us don't understand what's happening. But if you can get outside of that and understand the bigger picture, we really can use, and nothing against our current commissioner, who I know has kind of stood up in public and given you a nod, saying you're a good man and you'll do a good job, right? It's not just that. I mean, because he's a good man too, and
Right.
he served for a long time. But
Right.
I think you coming in, looking at what that can do for our county for 4 years, understanding all sides of something, not making decisions just because of one reason, and being able to stand up to naysayers and say, hey, here's how I'm thinking about it. Be honest and open about your processes, and being able to explain hard things to people that may not see the bigger picture. You have those skills.
Yeah.
And I've seen you do it many times. And so, anyways, I'm excited and grateful that you're willing to invest in us that way.
I've had some friends, curious, like, do I need to get a CAT scan? Why are you doing this right now?
Yeah.
It's like, I just think that it's good time for me to be involved.
So
you know what I'm saying?
In the
There were
climate
people
that we're in today,
Yeah. Yeah.
straight up, why are you doing that?
Well,
You don't have to do.
I mean, okay, we've been talking about like my business ownership and background and stuff, and then after I was running the bone marrow transplant program, I spent the next 20 years selling pharmaceuticals in cancer, in oncology, right?
Yeah.
And I only bring that up to explain that, like, so I come into an office, and people think selling pharmaceuticals is glamorous and all this, and my kids would even say, "Oh, Dad, you don't work that hard." I said, "But it's what's in between my ears, really, that knowledge, that expertise." That so when I go into an oncologist who is, I mean, I would never challenge their expertise on their career and
Mhm.
how they take care of patients and everything. But I had the confidence and the education and knowledge that I could bring value to them, so they knew exactly my drug. I not only did I have to be an expert on my products, but I had to be an expert on all the products as well, right?
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, what was my value? Well, my background was taking care of people. It's always been about people, right? As a nurse. And so what I bring forward was the reason I felt comfortable going into pharmaceutical sales, because I even had friends say, "Oh, you're going to the dark side."
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
like, well, what I realize is yeah, I can make a nice living, in that industry, but if I didn't feel comfortable what I was bringing, is it adding value? Is it taking care of people? Yes, absolutely. Life saving medications that, if the right patient has the right medication, they're going to get,
More of
a
an opportunity to
better,
get better.
a better outcome, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, so those, that may sound like kind of corny, but that's really what's driven me is I want to take care of people. I've always my whole life work. If you look back, whether it be in my church involvement or my career or even stuff that I do outside my investments, all really have that one common theme is taking care of people. So why do I want to be on the county commission? Why now? Why, well, because I see rough waters. Everybody, every single government entity, whether it be school district, whether it be the city, state, county, is coming into rough waters, right? I mean, and a lot of it's been building for quite a while.
Correct.
Almost everything that we're dealing with, I was just reading this morning, the city, they are making announcements that they're not hitting revenue neutral, right? That's because inflation is killing us.
Yes, it
No,
is.
no entity is going to be able to, reduce their mill. No, I mean, they would like to, but inflation is eating it up, and so we need somebody like myself that can lead our county, because there's some big things that we need to that are on our plate, like
Mhm.
our jail,
Mhm.
the detention center. We've been kicking the can down the road for years, and we have cells that we can't even put prisoners in because inmates or whatever you call them, folks, because they can't get the cell door open. you know this is expensive stuff.
Yes.
I mean, fixing a door is thousands of dollars. We're not talking about just, run down to Ace and get you a little bolt and put it in. I mean, it's expensive, right?
Right.
But we can't we just can't not done the business, right? We have a sheriff's department. Everybody probably has sort of read or whatever that Chad Gay, our sheriff, is asking the county for $800,000 bump
Mhm.
to just get
Add in
his
some guys.
just to add his guys, and it's expensive.
Yep.
But again, he's been asking for this for a long time,
Right.
and it's not getting cheaper. It's actually getting much worse.
Well, and if we don't invest now, we're not able to cover things where people start leaving, and it costs us more because we have to rehire and go through a whole new system to bring people in that is heavy on the front end. And then in 6 months, they're gone too because they're burned out. Well, now we have to bring a whole new system. And how much are we spending people up to get them to the point where we feel comfortable with them being now doing what they need to do?
Keeping people, attrition is
Yeah.
killer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's killer.
People don't see these formulas, and it blows me away and it frustrates me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, yes, I know it's a lot of money, but we're spending more not spending it
Right.
in a lot of ways because we're not looking at this correctly.
I'm not, and I'm not here to say that, I know every single thing about the county. Absolutely,
Right.
do not. I mean, I'm definitely clear-headed when it comes to all the detail. I mean, I showed you the budget. I mean, it's a book,
Yeah.
this thick.
Yeah.
All the different departments, everybody that's depending on the governing body to make decisions that better keep us where we're at, keep us moving, keep us, in the right space. And I understand I don't, but I will outwork anybody. I mean, I think that goes back to that work ethic of like, hey, I sent you an email last night at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people are like been in bed for 4 hours,
Right.
and they think they're working hard. Right. Well, you made the comment. I mean, it sometimes takes me longer just because, I'm a slow reader but I will do the work, So I think that's the confidence too, is that if I don't know, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I'm going to uncover everything I can possibly do to make a critical, use that critical thinking, use my years of experience and understand that it takes a team.
Right.
I'm not the expert on everything, but if I have the expert here telling me, I don't know anything about road and bridge, right? I mean, I would be a fool to say, I know how bridge, I know everything. No, but I have to depend on Jim, to make sure to do his thing, right? Right. So, and run that department, and but what I can do is I can go, okay, well, let's explore some more. Like, what's this county doing? Why are they having so much success? How are we doing here? How are we doing there? You know what I'm saying? Um, that's part of what I can bring. I can, raise the question. I can say, hey, why are we doing it this way? Why aren't we doing it that way? You asked me a question before that, not this morning, but you asked me a question about what am I curious about?
Right.
Well, so again, I last year I was involved with the Tony Robbins, and I don't know if
Oh, yeah.
you know, everybody knows who Tony Robbins is. Everybody thinks that's all this hype and everything. I spent a week with the smartest people, seriously, on the planet. And I thought AI was cool.
Yeah.
I learned so much. And so I'm thinking like, not that we're trying to eliminate people and not that we're trying to make anybody, get rid of people in the county.
Adjust.
But when we have an officer that goes and makes an arrest, and that arrest took, an hour, but then it takes him maybe days to be able to write up everything the way it should be when AI could do it in seconds.
100%.
And
Right off the video.
And I remember, years ago, it being in the medical world, people dictating, and then it got to where they would have a little recorder, and then a typist, would have to listen to the transcriber, and then would have to type out everything.
Mm-hmm.
Today, almost all of it's already put together. Like, they may have to dictate like the very specifics of that case, but a majority of it's already done, and they hit a template, or in this case, AI. I mean, it's crazy. Like with the Rebels, I went on Chat GPT and said, okay, I need a commercial, and I give it the description of the commercial of what I'm thinking, and everything that could, and I described to Chat GPT the kind of the meat, of the subject matter. Hit go, and like in 10 seconds, it's a commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the whole script. It's like, okay, the camera's going to fade up, and you're going to walk forward, and blah blah blah. I mean,
We use it all the time.
It's crazy, right? So my thought is like, how can we implement technologies? How can we implement, new concepts? And quite frankly, some of this might come right from the employees that are kind of handcuffed because they don't feel they have the right or the freedom to bring good ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And don't you want your employees to be energetic about what they're doing and say, hey, they bring an idea, wow, all the while, yeah, maybe I have to make the decision, but I'm like, wow, that might work, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, technology, AI. I mean, to me, it's just, and we don't even know where it's all going. You know. So,
Right.
anyways,
Yeah,
sorry.
well, that's okay. That's up my alley, actually, and I pay a lot of attention. There's some scary things to it too,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's some, when you transition to things. Let's just talk about California real quick and
Uh-huh.
electric vehicles and some of the mandates that are taking place there. Well, when you do the math, it doesn't work. And I believe in transitioning. I really do, and I believe in doing it over a period of time. And transitions like that take 18 to 20 years, and that's being ambitious. And when you say you give 3 years and you have to do A, B, and C, and it's mandated, it's like, are we in America anymore at this point? And it's so unreasonable.
Yeah.
We have a lot of unreasonable happening, and that frustrates me
Yeah.
because it's like when you put pencil to paper, they can't even run their air conditioners in the summer times with the amount of electricity they have. They have brownouts in those certain areas in that state,
Yeah.
and it's real, and it's been going on for years. And when they do the math on electric vehicles, they cannot sustain that kind of growth because they can't even do what they're doing now, much less add on to it. And there's these formulas, and we can get into the weeds on it, but the big overview is we need to understand these implementations and how a county is going to probably find some low-hanging fruit, and it's okay to get excited about that to implement these things, but you can't oversell what the bigger picture is. And so there's and you will understand transition and implementation and pilot testing things and how you do that, how you go about that, to have a jump team that has some interest in helping you help the county, right?
Right.
But there's ways to do it. And a lot of our people that are in frankly leadership positions don't understand this stuff. And it's pretty evident, and it's frustrating to me going, we can't do, as a solo start guy with $400 17 years ago, has been able to build companies and helped other people build companies and loves doing it.
Yeah.
We put in the nail first.
Yeah.
But when you step back and you see some people that are operating things that just don't know how to operate things, and they're just caught in one little 20% of the big picture, and they're trying to pound everything and put it into that little thing.
If you come into leadership with agenda, it almost never works.
Yeah.
Because as patriotic as they come. I mean, I'm as patriotic as they come. But wrapping a flag around myself and that be my whole mantra and why you should vote for me or something like that, that's completely not. I mean, that is background. That is the soul. That is hey, I'm a Christian, but that doesn't in and of itself make me the candidate, right?
Yes.
You follow what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And those things are important to me, but they're not. And it's very important to me, especially that last piece. I mean,
Yes.
I live and die by my faith, and people actually try to attack me and say that I'm not good enough. And that's interesting to me, and because of their perception of what it needs to look like. But to each their own, I know who I am.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. The people who love and know me know that, and everybody else, whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, I care, but not enough to lose sleep over it or think about it past 3 minutes or sometimes 30 seconds.
Right.
It is what it is. But I think as we come into these interesting times, one, thank you for stepping up and leading, and I want to give you an opportunity to close. We've got to run here. Running the batteries are going to get hot. But at the end of the day, though, and I knew it would be fun talking to you. It always is, and we can get on the phone, me and you, and forget it. Right? We'll go for an hour, and we respect the 10-minute phone call because it's just you've got such good energy and ideas, and you're always just speaking about building and growing things, and I'm very attracted to that because I love that space. I don't like talking about things that are behind us or things that we can't control or things that yes, I'm not unaware of what's happening.
Right.
I need to see it one time, check.
Yeah.
But what can I do here?
I mean, some of the stuff we're touching on is like, I have an opinion, I have my position, whatever it may be, but that subject matter will never cross the desk of a county commissioner. And so I frequently have to kind of reel people back
Yes.
gently and just try to educate them. Like, look, that subject matter though is important, and it's a federal issue. I really want to have a conversation about what we need to do in Harvey County.
Right.
And so it's interesting because so many people want to get all into the weeds on all these other subject matter. And it's like, and maybe this isn't wholly true, but county business is kind of boring. It's road and bridges. It's sheriff department. Health department. It's your tag office. It's this. It's that. The airport. It's but and it's all important. That's much different than the hysteria and the craziness that we see all around us. Like you're saying, it's not that I'm unaware of this stuff. It's just not what's driving me.
Well,
I
at
have
some
to
point,
be
you
aware.
can't get unhealthy to continue to perpetuate thoughts in your head that you can't affect change on.
Right.
And so you got to pick your poison, which I think some people have done.
Yeah.
But I've seen people step into positions recently because of an agenda or because of what they think other people might want to hear.
Yeah.
Versus really understanding the impact that has on the greater community as a whole. And there's that book, 13 Ways to Kill Your Community.
Yeah.
And there's some book studies going. There's some pieces in there that are just critical.
Yeah.
And it's if somebody actually takes the time to read that book, which I implore all of our leaders to do it.
Right.
And people that are surrounding leaders that want to support, or people that want to become leaders, like I did one day when I'm sitting at the city council and watching you guys way back in the day going, man, could I ever grow to the point of earning one of those positions? That I'm so far away from me at that point that there's no way I could ever earn that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed with an opportunity to serve you guys and be on the background of a lot of stuff and understand how government works and the different pieces and where we should be focused on, not, saying that we can do this thing when it has nothing to do with your position or your ability to influence it,
Right.
and kind of stay in your lane. But also, it's okay to cross mingle and communicate. But a lot of people, our citizens, they don't know where the lanes are because it's been so blurred.
Yeah.
And they have perceptions of, you're a county commissioner and you're going to get city questions all day long.
All day long.
And people will try to answer that instead of saying, hey, here's the contacts and here's where you should go to get that information.
Right.
This is our responsibility over here. So if you have some questions about these things, but we're not, because we all want to be know-it-alls. We have egos and we want to be the title and the position, and I just feel like that's just
some of the most powerful words are, I don't know.
100%.
Right. I mean, I'm not going to give you an answer about something that I have no clue. Some people will, they have their opinion.
I might have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
But here's another thing, Kev.
Yeah.
And this is what I know you will do.
Right.
You will find it if you need to.
Right.
You know how to navigate.
Yeah.
And you will be a bulldog when something needs to happen. And you will call foul.
Mm-hmm.
But also when it's time to walk away from something and not put spilled energy on something that you can't change.
Right.
And those are the skills and talents. And I'm excited at this next level, you coming back into serving at this level. I'm pulling for you, man. I'm excited for your campaign. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it on the background.
Yeah.
Just know that I'm one of your biggest cheerleaders. And then just to be a friend of somebody that I look up to and somebody that I have looked up to for years, to actually be able to say, yeah, that's one of my buddies now.
Yeah.
At one point I wanted him just to know my name.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now we're buddies, and that's kind of cool.
I get that. And I appreciate that. And that's how I feel towards some folks as well. It's like, as you were talking, it made me think about, over the last few months, just being out. So, District 3 geographically is 2/3 of Harvey County, right?
Right.
So rural Harvey County, west and south of Newton. And you got Newton addresses, you got Heston, Halstead, Sedgwick, and Burton. And, I realized, oh my gosh, I do know people in all those communities, have known people for years in those communities, but those communities don't know me like the Newton people know me.
Right.
Just because, and so as I've been out and I've been, knocking on doors, truly, I don't feel like I can ask for somebody's vote if I haven't even attempted to contact them and get to know them, right? I mean, now, yeah, I would love people to vote for me because, hey, I'm a Republican or I'm a Christian or I'm a this or I'm a that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I want to meet the people, right? And it's been really refreshing, honestly. Um, the number of people that are just like almost shocked that I'm at their doorstep and just say, "Hey, I'm Kevin Pouch. I'm running for county commission," and you know, a lot of times they don't even have a clue what is the county commission do,
Right.
and this is a little time to educate people, but I'm just the feedback's been tremendous.
That's awesome.
It's so kind of cool.
Well, thank you for putting the boots on the ground and doing what you're doing. And I do want to leave you, if you had one last thing to say, to speak to the community, whether it be about you, your family, kind of to close us out here, what would that be?
Well, I kind of go back to some of the stuff we've already talked about. Family is number one to me. I mean, everything I've done in my life, really, as an adult and a father, grandfather now, who got a bunch of grandkids. I mean, everything I do, I want to impact their lives. But on a grander scale, even outside of my own nuclear family, and is what can I do to help all of our lives? And it's not okay, it's Harvey County, right? But wow, there's so many cool things that are happening right now, and I just feel like I can add value. And I think that's the part that when people say, well, why do you want to do this? I just feel like I look at the county commission. I think that we need some leadership. I believe that I've got, as you've mentioned, built a resume of 40 years of leadership experience, and hey, I may catch some people off guard. I have a crazy, weird sense of humor sometimes, and love to,
Have fun. Yeah.
we were doing that parade in Burton the other day, and one of my guys, I got a shirt made. All my shirts said, Kevin Pouch for county commissioner, but one shirt was the vote for Pedro.
That's good.
And a lot of people have no clue.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the people that did were cracking up.
Yeah.
And it was just fun. It was just something fun. Like, I don't know what other county commissioners have done historically, but I have no problem. I want to get to know the people that are in those departments. I would like to have, coffee with the commissioner, with your employees, have opportunities for them to, get to know me personally. I mean, I had a manager, one time that I loved, and she made the comment, friendly to all, friend to none. And in a management setting, right, because I had people that in the organization that I was managing, and I thought that was really great advice. I'm going to be kind and nice to everybody. Now, in a management situation,
Right.
there's a separation, right?
100%.
But I like the mindset, and so that's what I want to. I want to be that person that when I walk in the county courthouse, those people are happy to see me, right?
Right.
And that they know that I'm going to be fair and those kind of things. So,
Yeah.
but honestly, I'm just excited to serve. I've lived my life. I told my wife a long time ago, hey, you hang with me, it's going to be an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really, it's another adventure, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Right on, man. Well, thank you for running. I did want to give you one of our hats. It's the Axe on Displays hat. So thank you so much.
I like your signs, man.
Yeah.
I need one of your signs.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk next time off camera, but everybody that comes here gets that gift. And
Nice, thank
so if that size is not right, let me know and I'll get you the right size. But
it's-
thank you for everything. Appreciate your service and your friendship.
Thank you, Andy.
And no matter what happens, I know we'll be doing things in the future.
You bet.
All right, man. Appreciate
Thanks
you, brother.
a lot.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.